What is going on, everybody? We had a little bit of mic problems on my end. I have no clue why my computer mic was locked in, but hey, we figured it out. We're back now. Sorry for talking and you guys couldn't hear me, but hey.
I thought that I was bugging. I thought it was
technical. Dude, I turned on the stream on my phone. I'm like, shit, it's me. I can't even hear myself. So nothing like a good start to the stream, Brady. Interesting week around the NFL. We had a mid-off on Sunday Night Football. What are your takeaways quick from Sunday night? The Vikings still legit contenders? Are the Colts completely out of the AFC playoff race? What's your thoughts?
I'm going to say no to both of those. I mean, this is kind of a snooze fest of a game, to be honest. Like, this is one of the lower-end primetime games we've gotten. Joe Flacco did not play well. Sam Darnold himself really didn't play very well. Vikings couldn't finish. Colts really had nothing to finish. They didn't get anything truly started offensively for the most part tonight. And so to answer your two questions, the Vikings, no, they're not legit contenders. They may be a wild card contender still. I think it's pretty clear that they're not one of the two best teams in the North. And in terms of the Colts, they're not done in the AFC. It's not looking great for them. If I had to choose, I would say they're probably not making the playoffs, but they've got a shot just based off how weak the AFC is this year.
Yeah, Trey with an early comment. Thank you for tuning in, Trey. Gino looked a little Mahomey today. Interesting. With
if you mean the interceptions, yeah.
The interceptions were brutal from Gino today. I mean, the Seahawks actually lost that game because they had, I think it was 4 red zone or 3 red zone possessions that all ended in either a turnover on downs or a Gino interception that made no sense.
It's crazy. I actually turned that game off. It was 20-13. Rams had the ball with like 2 minutes left, and I was like, this thing's over. The Seahawks had failed to score on their second to last drive of regulation. I was like, this game's over. And then I get a notification, Demarcus Robinson wild one-handed catch in overtime to win. I was like, they went to OT? Like, how did that happen? I was pretty astounded to see that, but –
dude, I mean, it was crazy to watch just because they were moving the ball so well in that second half against the Rams after a slow first half. And then they got to the goal line and Gino made the stupidest decisions I've ever seen. Like, they could have ran the ball. Nothing could have happened. Trey goes, they're going to trade for Lamar. That is not happening. That's a 3-time MVP.
My sources tell me it's a possibility.
Yes, we got some really good sources that are saying that. But yeah, kind of my takeaway from that one, I'll say, the Rams are right back in the thick of things. Now back to 500 in the division where the Arizona Cardinals are currently leading, which is crazy to think about. We wouldn't have even thought that like 3 weeks ago, but here we are.
Real ones had the Arizona Cardinals as a playoff team preseason. So
well, like it's a toss-up in the West right now. It really is. Like I can't trust any of these teams. Like the Cardinals, I'm still confused by them. I don't know my takeaways from them. All I know is Shane Waldron sucks. That guy's horrible. It's time to get rid of Shane Waldron. Caleb Williams looks horrible at football. They can't get anything going on offense right now. And the Bears look bad. Like, what are your takeaways? Do the Bears just fire Shane Waldron right away? And I mean, if I'm Matt Eberflus, like, my job's on the line this season, and I'm tying it to this offensive coordinator who sucks, right? He's got to go.
Yeah, I think that the smart move would be to fire Waldron right now. I don't think they will probably get the rest of the season, especially with the rookie quarterback. God forbid they bring him back for next year. I actually think there's a decent chance if Chicago misses the playoffs altogether, which right now seems like a real possibility. If they miss the playoffs altogether, I could see them firing the whole staff, get rid of Eberflus, and trying to make a run at Ben Johnson. My uncle is a diehard Detroit fan, and he was just saying the same thing to me today. He was on his way to Lambeau with some of my family members, and he was talking about how good the Lions have been this year. He said, man, I just feel like Ben Johnson is going to head over to Chicago and take Eberflus's job, so something to look out for. If the Bears get Ben Johnson next year as their head coach, they'll be really good.
Yeah, and people around here, shout out to Dub Club and Bleacher Nation for having me downtown today. Really cool experience with a lot of Bears fans. Listen, a lot of Bears fans are feeling that Ben Johnson hype. Ben Johnson 2025 is a trending thing here in Chicago, and it's a real possibility that he could be heading this way. They have the talent. And that's the thing with Ben Johnson. He didn't go to a job this year because he didn't necessarily like it and feel like he had unfinished business with Detroit, right? Detroit
Right.
has a good playoff run, and a situation like Chicago opens up, potentially Cincinnati opens up, potentially Philly, potentially Dallas. Those are all very good opportunities for a guy that's looking to make his first stint as a head coach in the NFL, especially with Ben Johnson's pedigree.
Yeah, 100%. It'll be interesting to see how the coaching carousel all shakes out. And one coach, let's talk about another game. One coach that I feel like we both are of the opinion is not that good. And a few weeks ago, we were talking about the potential hot seat and maybe going after the year. That's going to have his job saved, not by his own doing, probably, is Nick Sirianni. And the
Yep.
Eagles are sitting there still a two-loss team, 6-2, and they got the victory today. But I mean, you watch how that game played out. The first half, they looked amazing. They're up 20-0. And then against one of the worst teams in the NFL, they almost completely implode. And it takes on a Kobe Dean, a fantastic interception of Trevor Lawrence in the red zone to save them and snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. They blew a 20-0 lead almost. And it was down to 28-23. The Eagles team, I don't think any of us see them making a deep playoff run in the NFC. I think we all see them as a playoff team. I think regardless, the Eagles are going to get in, whether they're the East champs or as a wild card. But I just don't see this team going far.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Like, it is a two-man race to top the NFC East. That's pretty clear after Dallas dropped another game, and obviously it looks like Dak could miss a few weeks here at this point. One of the things that's interesting is Trey, I'm not buying this. I ain't buying this one bit. There's no way we could turn around
Fine,
the Jag.
fine, let's go.
I will say with the Jaguars though, like, they have played better. Like, they've been better from when they started the season, but it's not enough to save Dougie P's job. They're going to make some changes there in Jacksonville this offseason. Obviously, try to address some of these problems on the offensive line. I know they traded Cam Robinson, but they need to retool that offensive line and kind of get some more guys in that secondary to help out in Jacksonville. What I will say with the NFC East, though, right, it's a two-team race between the Washington Commanders and the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, the Eagles match up great with the Commanders because they have one of the best front sevens in the NFL. We know how great this front seven is, and Jalen Carter is one of the best interior linemen in the NFL. What I will say on the Commander side of things, man, this team just wins. Like, there's something about this team that's just gritty, and they find a way to do it. Like, it's different ways every week. Jaden Daniels and Austin Eckler did nothing on the ground this week. It was ugly on offense for them, but their defense keeps on improving and impresses me week in and week out by just the steady improvements. And it goes to show you how valuable Dan Quinn really was to the Cowboys because they stink over there right now. Mike Zimmer might not have a job for much longer. I mean, he's been really bad this season, but on the Eagles side of things, the inconsistencies during different quarters this year are concerning. Saquon Barkley is an offensive player of the year candidate. He's awesome. A.J. Brown got hurt again. Who knows how long he's going to be out? And that definitely impacts Jalen Hurts, who's played better, but we'll see. He's also been inconsistent this season. So if I were to say I had to pick one team, I'm sticking with my pick from last week. The Washington Commanders are winning the East.
I'm going to stick with the Eagles just off the experience. I think we're both kind of sticking to our original takes, but I mean, the Eagles have the veterans, they have the playoff pedigree, and they probably have the edge in terms of talent. So, but those three factors considered, I'm going to go with them. But I mean, at this point, it looks like it's all going to come down to the head to head matchup. So we will see.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how that one takes out. Let's go to Dallas, right? The Falcons pretty much routed the Cowboys today, and it was close at halftime. And, Drake London, I mean, that was crazy. Dude just balls out for 2 drives and then hurts himself basically celebrating with that hip pointer. I mean, great player. But on the Cowboys side of things, they couldn't stop anything. Kirk had like 5 incompletions in the whole day. The Falcons running game ran all over him.
I was going to say, Bijan's starting to get going.
Yeah, Mike Zimmer's defense is one of the worst in the NFL. Dak's hurt. Like, at this point, if you're the Cowboys, you're not rushing any of those injured guys back. You're honestly playing for a better draft position for next year and trying to figure out how they can retool his team considering the big contracts they now have tied up between Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb. Brady, where do the Cowboys go?
I mean, it's a really tough answer. And the good news for you is that we probably are going to see some less of Ezekiel Elliott after the healthy scratch today. He's missed 3 mandatory meetings, a lot of tardiness, they said. But, I mean, as a whole, the Cowboys, I hate to say it because I think the world of Dak Prescott as a quarterback and as a man, but part of me wonders how locked in is Dak after getting that bag? I mean, we've seen him now. He's focused on. It seems he's just got engaged. Dude's about to get married. He's got a bag. Like he's over. He's 30 something now. He's been in the league 9 or 10 years. Like I still believe he's a competitor. I still believe he wants to win. But does he have the same drive that he did 5 years ago? Which is crazy to say about somebody that hasn't even made an NFC Championship game. But I mean, it's just reality. These guys get paid and they start, you see their play drop off. We see the trend occur often enough that it's worth questioning. But outside of Dak, even, which I don't think is one of their biggest concerns, they have to get a wide receiver two. They have to get a number two pass catcher to go alongside CeeDee Lamb. They have to get a running game. The offensive line is starting to fall off. Besides Tyler Smith, honestly, they're not a great unit. They got to get somebody to go with Parsons if they're able to keep Parsons. Maybe this offseason they look into trading him. I do believe that's a possibility with their hands tied a little bit
I
financially.
think it might be a better move if they trade Parsons. They need to
Yeah,
get more talent. They're
I
so top heavy right now.
And I mean, their run defense is bad. Their secondary is bad. Trayvon Diggs has been getting cooked pretty consistently this season. I just don't know where they go. I think the number one thing is to bring in a new head coach, a new voice, and spend a little bit of that money that you have. I mean, Jerry Jones, we talked about it. He's tried to outsmart everybody, tried in the offseason, oh, we don't need a running back. We don't need to make a move for a running back. They could have Derrick Henry right now, and the season looked completely different right now. They could be a 3-loss team with Derrick Henry, just how poorly they've ran the ball. It would open things up in the passing game, but nope, they decided they didn't need him. They were too big time. And Jerry Jones is going to have this galaxy brain move to bring in Ezekiel Elliott next to Dowdle, and you see how that's working. It's just insane. But we talk about Michael Parsons possibly getting traded. I said this a few weeks ago. I'm throwing the Falcons out there as a potential suitor, just I'm not just because they played today, but if that arises that he's on the block, look for the Falcons to be in the mix.
What I'll say is that before Tuesday's deadline, it'll be interesting to see. Like we saw the Saints today lose to the Panthers with a healthy Derek Carr.
Yeah,
RIP
Michael
Chris
Thomas
Olave. He's
loves
throwing
him.
hospital balls, bro. I mean, Derek Carr is so bad. It's not. It's just I can't. Like okay. This is the frustrating part about the Saints is that Saints fans were so excited because they won 2 games and they blew teams out to start the season, and they were the same exact team, and we're like, yeah, they're going to come down to reality, and they're going to be like a 7-win team, right? They're going to be worse than a 7-win team this year. Obviously, some injuries didn't help, but that defense is completely regressed. All their veterans on the team are not as good as they used to be. And it's time to move on. Like they just signed Alvin Kamara to an extension. They're just digging their own grave at this point and signing more of these veterans to longer deals and pushing cap space down the way. It's going to hurt their future even more than it has. They need to try to get out of these some of these contracts for the deadline, potentially eat some money just so they can have a future for whoever they draft a quarterback and some of these new pieces that are going to come in. Because Dennis Allen's done. He's not coming back next year either. Like, where do the Saints go from here? And obviously, I do want to say credit to Bryce Young. He's been through a lot in his early career and got a good win today. Shout out to him. But hey, where do the Saints go from here?
It's the same thing as the Cowboys. They're kind of stuck right now. The cap situation is terrible. You've got a lot of veteran guys that they have to pay off. They're stuck with Derek Carr. You really just got to hope that the development of Rashid Shaheed and Chris Olave over the next year or two like helps ascend Derek Carr. And we've seen flashes of this offense, but it just is not nearly good enough. And at a time when the Bucks are continuing to revamp every year, they lost the greatest quarterback of all time and brought in Baker Mayfield, won the South, won a playoff game. This year we're looking pretty good until injuries started to kind of derail them. We'll see what ends up happening with them down the stretch. But the Falcons are building up. Even the Panthers might have a better future depending on what they do in the draft of this season, whether they put people around Bryce Young, still think it's him, or if they go after Cam Ward or somebody, we'll see. But the Saints easily have the most bleak future in the NFC South right now, I feel like, even compared to Carolina. So I think the first move, once again, like the last team we talked about, is to get rid of the head coach, bring in somebody new. And my thing hiring coaches today. Hire an offensive minded coach. That is the name of the game right now. Stop bringing in defensive guys. Like it's very rare to see that work. I feel like in today's NFL, and that's why I hated the Patriots was going after Gerard Mayo, bringing him in as kind of the in-house guy without even interviewing anybody else. You see how it's going, and yeah, I think the head coach is the number one thing, and we'll see what kind of moves they make in the draft. They need a lot of help.
Yeah. We'll talk about some teams in that division that you mentioned, the Patriots. Uh, the Dolphins and the Bills. Now, this was a lot closer than I think we both expected, but that's another team that next 2 to 3 years, right? They're stuck in that Tua contract. Tyreek's going to get older. Waddle's obviously paid now at this point, and they're not even utilizing these guys like they used to. They're running Jonnu Smith out there for a higher target share. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are smaller parts of this offense, and it's just not as good as it used to be, right? They're Devon Achane's been really good for them this season. Like, took a big step forward this year. Obviously, the more volume helps, but like, where do the Dolphins go? A tough loss again. They're basically out of the playoff race. I know they have a lot of problems on defense, and they have the roster to win this year, right? Their veterans on defense aren't getting younger. Tyreek Hill's not getting any younger. They're using him less. Jalen Waddle is obviously second fiddle to Tyreek Hill, and they're using him less than Hill. Like, what is going on in Miami? Can we expect them to get better for next season, or is this like a downward spiral like we're seeing with the Saints and the Cowboys?
Yeah, I think that the Dolphins are going nowhere fast as long as number one is under center. And I will give Mike McDaniel a bit of leeway here because I think he's handcuffed. I know he said this with Tua out. He wanted Tua back in because this offense is built around Tua. But at the same time, Mike McDaniel is scheming this up to Tua's strengths and what Tua's good at. What is Tua good at? That's the question. Like, I don't think he's the worst quarterback in the
He's
league.
good at the no look shovel pass.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's not the worst quarterback in the league. Don't get what I'm saying here twisted, but he's the worst quarterback to ever be in the ballpark of the money he's being paid. And it's just, I mean, breaking news: quarterback with third concussion in 3 years that was already bad is still bad after said concussion. Like, I don't think there's a whole lot to it. I think the Dolphins are talented. I don't think even with a great quarterback that they're a Super Bowl level roster or anything, but I mean, Tua on let us all know over the last 2 years that Tua is an MVP type of guy and that he is better than Justin Herbert and this, that, and the other. So all I ask of Miami Dolphins fans is to just keep the same energy and stay consistent in what you were saying.
Yeah, it's a grim outlook for the Dolphins. And I was concerned for Buffalo. I thought this really was like it looked like this was going to be a game they dropped. They didn't play great a lot. And,
The second half they took off. That first half was sloppy. Second half they were unstoppable on offense.
they did. And, it was partly because the Dolphins went more man coverage and the Bills kind of ate that alive. I think when they were playing zone a lot more in the first half, the Bills didn't really have an answer. I'm not sure why the Dolphins switched so much to man in the second half, but it was interesting to see. And I was thinking, like, are we really about to see Buffalo have 3 losses, right? And, it would almost have the number 1 seed wrapped up if Casey wins 2 more weeks in a row and then goes in that Buffalo game basically saying if we win this one, we had that 1 seed locked up. But that was a big win for the Bills to stay on course for that big matchup we have coming in a few weeks. Let's talk about another MVP candidate, Lamar Jackson. Absolute blew the brakes off the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos aren't a legit contender. I think that's very clear. Bo Nix is not good. Like, he's just not good yet. And I know people like want to say like, oh, he's had these nice stat lines these past few weeks and he's played these bad teams, so you can't really count it. I don't want to like say both those things. Like, he's just been Bo Nix. He has bad footwork. He doesn't throw a good deep ball, and he's an indecisive playmaker right now. When he does make plays like off schedule, I think he's pretty good. He's a very good scrambler. We've seen some plays like he's like, oh, okay, Bo Nix looks kind of nice making that play across his body, throwing a nice ball. But besides that, like, Bo Nix has not shown me much. I don't trust their offensive talent around Nix. And defensively, we saw what this unit really is against a good offense. Like, they got absolutely bullied today. And I know we talked about Pat Surtain and Zay Flowers. He didn't show up today, really. And what I will say on Baltimore's side of things, they just went through and dominated again. Lamar had another perfect passer rating, and it's just too easy for them right now. Like
Yep.
they when they've when they like face a team that challenges them in the run game, they struggle a little bit, but they didn't face any resistance today. So Denver had no choice.
Yeah, and I'm just looking kind of at this game and how it went. I feel like the Ravens made it a point to not start off slow on offense. The defense gave up a little bit at the beginning, gave up a Bo Nix touchdown, and then a field goal right before half. I mean, the offense was consistently moving along there. Had a touchdown in the first quarter, followed that up with a field goal drive, a touchdown drive after that, and then a deep bomb right before half to make it 24-10. Then they just come out of the gate, touchdown to start the second half, another touchdown drive in the third quarter. Like they were just pedal to the metal, and I think right now it's safe for us to say that the top tier of teams, there are four teams in the top tier right now, and that would be Kansas City, Detroit, Buffalo, and Baltimore.
Yep, I agree. I think all those teams are basically ahead of everybody else. Can't consider Houston or Green Bay in that mix. We'll talk about that Green Bay and Detroit game. Man, they laid a dud today. I thought they were going to put together a better performance than they did. Jordan Love was bad. Like, I understand the conditions were really tough in Green Bay, but his decision making this year is becoming very concerning. Like, the pick six changed the whole momentum of the game. It was a low scoring. Both teams were grinding out the clock. Like, it was a gritty game at that point. He throws that pick six. It feels like a massive hole for the Packers to climb out of. Two scores. Teams are like, it's hard to get yards right now. Teams are struggling to move the ball. When the thing I'll say, like, I understand interceptions. You can't look into them because sometimes they're like Jordan Love, for example, this year. He probably has 4 to 5 really bad plays a game, but besides that, he's been nails. And when you play a team as good as the Lions, those 4 to 5 throws come back to haunt you. And they did today. And that's what could keep Green Bay from being a real Super Bowl contender are those throws. Now, that defense couldn't stop the run today. That didn't help. But offensively, like after that pick six, it just felt like Green Bay was out of it. What did you think out of that one?
Well, the Packers, I mean, at the end of the half, they went away from what was working so well for them. Josh Jacobs,
Yeah.
midway through the second, was over 100 total yards already and was cooking. And that was the type of game and type of atmosphere and environment where it needed to be a run heavy attack. And they started to put the ball a little bit too much in Jordan Love's hands. And again, like you said, I don't even want to say Jordan Love played a terrible game today. Jordan Love had a 5 or 6 snap span that was terrible because you still saw good from Jordan Love. And that's the thing with him. It is like just a tightrope act for him because you'll see a phenomenal throw. You'll see a rollout, a play out of structure where he turns crossbody and throws a laser to Jaden Reed, or he finds Christian Watson on a ripper over the middle. And then you see him just throw into triple coverage, like thinking he can loft it over two defenders and between another or something crazy. And that I agree, that is what is going to hold Green Bay back from winning the Super Bowl this year is Jordan Love's recklessness. And I mean, to be honest, we got to remember, even though Jordan Love is in like year 5, he's started less than 30 games in the National Football League. And I'm not saying we coddle him or say, oh, it's okay, because you're being paid big money. You need to play like you're being paid big money. And there have been a lot of times this year that he has. Today was not an example of that. And I mean, the Lions just showed that they are the class of the NFC. And I know we're still, I think the jury is still out on this, but we were really concerned about how the defense would take a step back and the pass rush wouldn't be good or effective at all. The front seven wouldn't be good without Aiden Hutchinson. Their defense has played really, really well ever since Aiden Hutchinson went down. And obviously, that's not a correlation thing. But I mean, they've looked good and they just are dominating in all three phases of the game. So maybe they are going to be able to overcome that loss. Right now, they certainly look like the class of the NFC.
Yeah, and what's interesting with the Lions, right? It just feels like they flipped a switch after that loss. They've been a different team. Like they struggled out of the gate. Jared Goff wasn't playing good football. And once Jared Goff turned it on, this team was a different animal. Like they have basically been unstoppable going through this. I think they're on what a 6 game win streak now at this point. Like they've been
Yeah,
rolling here.
71. So yeah, well, Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, 6-game win streak right now, and it's been behind Jared Goff playing really well. Who are our top four coaches this year? I think top four coaches this year or all or just in the NFL. We'll just talk about NFL. I'll go with top four coaches right now. Andy Reid. Uh, I will go with I'll go with Sean McVay. I'll go with Matt LaFleur, and then I'll go Kevin O'Connell.
Okay, I'm going with Andy Reid. I'm still going Kyle Shanahan number two. I know that he's been not able to win the big one, and that's been really his fatal flaw. But I mean, Kyle Shanahan offenses are pretty consistently dominant, and even in a down year for the Niners, I think they're still top 10 in both rushing and passing EPA. And it's just been kind of a weird season for them with injuries, some defensive letdowns late in games, and just Brock Purdy turning the ball over a little bit too much. But I'm going Shanahan at the two. I'm going McVay at the three and LaFleur at the four. And honestly, I think you can make a good case for Matt LaFleur being better than Sean McVay, but I give the
McVay's got
tiebreaker
that ring.
because he has that. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, and we'll talk about this kind of wrapping it up. All right, we have a lot of tough.
Well, I just want to answer. I want to answer Mr. Linkletter here. No, not Dan Campbell, because I'm a firm believer. I do think Dan Campbell's a good coach. He's a good locker room guy. He's a good motivator. But the guy driving that train in terms of the coaching staff is Ben Johnson, bar none.
Yeah, and what I'll say, like with Campbell, it'll be interesting to see how the Lions look without Ben Johnson as their offense coordinator. I don't know if they'll regress or not, but obviously Campbell is a presence as a leader of men, not necessarily a schemer for the Lions. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Let's talk about the AFC before we wrap up this show. Obviously, the wild card race is interesting. Who do you think the three teams are that are getting in the AFC?
Well, I think it's going to be between the Steelers and the Ravens as probably that first wild card right now, the way it looks. I think you want to ask me what the field is going to be at the end of the season. I'm not sure the order, but one of those AFC North teams, another AFC North team, and the Bengals, and then the Chargers. Those are the three I'm rolling with.
I am rolling with the Steelers, the Bengals, and I hate to say it, but the Denver Broncos.
Oh, yeah, you the Broncos over the Chargers.
I think I'm taking the Broncos over the Chargers. Down the
And the
stretch, I'm taking them. The
Chargers whooped
Chargers.
them.
What do you say?
Chargers whooped the Broncos already once.
I know they did, but they're going to split down the stretch here. I think what I'll say, like the Chargers, what frustrates me about them is their offensive line. Like they have good tackles, they have a decent offensive line, and they can't seem to block people. Like they struggled today and killed drives because they couldn't block people. Obviously, the Browns secondary has been really inconsistent this season, allowed some big plays in the passing game. So it looked like they had a good day on offense, but they've been struggling to get things going on offense consistently, and partly because they have a lack of talent on that unit and because they just play low scoring, gritty games. Like I just think the Broncos down the stretch after this Kansas City game this week, they have a little bit easier of a road than Los Angeles. Who knows? I do think it will be between those two teams, though. I think the Colts are probably cooked. They're a weird team to me right now. I think the South is weak, but I think the Colts, like, week to week just frustrate me. Like Joe Flacco against one of the worst pass defenses in the NFL the last few weeks struggled tonight. Like they couldn't get anything going.
Yeah, I just do think in terms of the Chargers, their season, we'll see what they really are from November 17th to December 8th, because in that 4 game span, it's the Bengals, the Ravens, the Falcons, and the Chiefs.
Yeah,
So we'll see if they can even split that. I feel really confident about them going to the postseason. But I'm saying postseason like it's baseball or something. Um, no, I like the Chargers, especially. I've told you my philosophy when it comes to playoff teams, playoff matchups gets pretty simple, and it's who has the better coach, who has the better quarterback, some combination of that. And I mean, I believe that the Chargers have the better of both there.
they do.
Um, I think that Jim Harbaugh is a little bit better than Sean Payton currently, and I think that Justin Herbert's obviously miles better than Bo Nix. And I mean, Chargers already have a head-to-head win. I just am not buying it with the Broncos. You can only ride the defense for so long until your offense starts being tested. And I know what I said a minute ago about not hiring defensive guys as a head coach, and I do agree with that. I stand on that. If there is one defensive guy to hire this year, it might be Jesse Minter because all he's done is come over from Michigan and be the DC for the Chargers and have them completely locking up defensively. They've been amazing. They've been a top 5 defense this year, and he's been a big part of it. And they've been figuring something out over there. I really just trust in Justin Herbert, Jim Harbaugh, and the rest of the gang over the guys in orange.
All right, let's go to the NFC to close this show up. Brady, who are the 3 NFC teams getting in?
In the wild card, so my division winners are still the Niners. I'm still going with the Niners in the West. Go Niners, Falcons, Eagles, and Lions. So I think that our wild card teams are going to end up being Green Bay for sure. Green Bay is going to be one.
Yep.
I'm still giving a wild card spot to my Cardinals, man. I'm rocking out with the preseason prediction.
You got to ride with them.
We're going with the Cards. We're flying high, baby. And it's tough for me between the Commanders and the Rams. Somebody has to get left out. It's very between the Commanders.
You're not leaving. Stop it. You're not leaving out the Commanders.
I don't think I am. I think the Rams are hot. Let's put it this way. Commanders and Packers are both getting one, or the Eagles if they don't win the East. And
I mean, okay, so the Commanders are already at 7 wins right now.
Yep.
Yeah. And still have to play the Cowboys and the Giants. Or no, they're done with the Giants. They have the Cowboys twice, Eagles twice, and I'm not sure who else they have.
Yeah, so I'm going with whichever team finishes second in the East, they're in. The Packers are in. It's just going to come down to those 2 West teams, I believe, the Rams and the Cardinals, for that last spot that's up for grabs at the end of the year.
Yeah, so I got in the East. I'm rocking with the Commanders. In the South, I'm going with the Falcons. In the North, that's the Lions. That one I'm not going to win, even though I've been saying the Lions aren't going to win and the Packers would win. And then the Vikings, I'm completely off in that division right now. And then the West, I agree with you. I think the 49ers get that. And they'd be the most interesting 4 seed I think we've had in recent years, which could be a little spicy, They get the Lions potentially in a divisional round.
Especially if McCaffrey comes back and is good.
Yeah. So my wild card teams, I think it'll be the 5 seed will be the loser of the NFC East. The 6 seed will be the Packers. And the 7th seed will be the Rams. I think the Bears might be cooked. The Vikings. I'm not convinced the Vikings are making the playoffs. I said this heading into this week.
I told you this a few weeks back.
They have a lot of division games coming up, and I'm not convinced they win enough of those division games to potentially beat out the Rams down the stretch. And if their NFC record is worse than the Rams, which I think the Rams' NFC record is actually pretty good this season already, I think that the Rams get in over on that tiebreaker on a 10-7 split between the Vikings. So it'll be interesting to see. And they have the tiebreaker over them, so it doesn't really matter.
I think that there's a good chance that the Vikings, in their 3 remaining games against the Packers and Lions, go 0-3.
Yeah, and the Bears are okay. The Bears have been bad on offense, but it'll be a tough game.
They can at least get that split.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see it. Like the Bears, I think the Bears' playoff outlook's just the last 2 weeks. It's so low now.
I think for the Bears, you have to look at the rest of this year. If you make the playoffs, it's great, but your focus just needs to be on developing Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze.
And that'll happen when Shane Waldron's gone.
Yep, I agree.
All right, well, hey, we really appreciate you guys tuning into the live stream of the Blitz Angle. Hit that subscribe button if you're watching this on YouTube. Let us know some of your playoff predictions down below, and we'll catch you guys next time.
Yes, sir.